Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very, very special show. I've got a dynamite guest star today. He is the lead guitar player from the legendary rock act Deep Purple, also founder of the Dixie Dregs and the Steve Morse Band, former member of Kansas. He's with Flying Colors. He's done so much in the history of rock and roll over the last, almost close to 50 years. Steve, welcome, Steve Morse, to Sea of Tranquility.
Hey, everybody. And thanks for having me, Peter.
Oh, it's the pleasure's all mine. I've been a fan of yours, with the Dregs and the Steve Morse Band for, like 40 years, and I've been a lifelong Deep Purple fan. And I will say right now, when the day that you joined the band was a very happy day for me. And I'm a fan of the old stuff. I love, Blackmore is one of my favorite guitar players too, and I love the old stuff. But I just think that the day you joined the band was also a happy day for me. It's worked out really well. You guys now, 20 years in the band now, right? 25 actually. Or is it 26?
Yeah, 26 if you count since 26 and a half. Oh, we're actually 27 since from the time we decided to go ahead with it and do the trial period, so to speak. And then since the first time we played together, it's been 26 years.
Okay. It's hard to think that there was actually a trial period for you, right? But I guess that's what happens.
Well, I wanted it too, because I thought, well, Purple never toured much in the U.S. And they never stopped. Well, actually, for the time they're broken up, they stopped. But they played a lot in Europe. So when Frank Solomon, my manager, who now manages Dream Theater, when he called me about it, I said, I don't know. I mean, it all depends on the band, He said, it's Deep Purple. I said, yeah, but what does it, what are the people like? What is the music like? And can they still play, It's a lot of question marks. I don't want to go out there and be a nostalgic act. So we got together and decided to do 4 gigs. And Roger and Bruce, the manager from Purple, came to one of the Dregs gigs that we were doing in North Carolina, I think. And so Roger and I took a picture, we're standing next to each other like this, and the other guys in England took a picture of the 3 of them, and then they photoshopped us together. And that was the ad for the new gigs, the 4 gigs that we were going to do, the trial period. And I still, I had tapes of Richie playing the set and of Joe Satriani playing the set. As you know, Joe finished that year with them when Richie quit, because they still had gigs. And so rather than cancel the gigs, one of them was a tour of Japan. And the Japanese promoter, of course, Mr. Udo, said, well, what about getting Joe Satriani, who was doing very well there? And Joe's a great player and just has great musical sense. So I actually got some good ideas from what he did. And what they're looking for is somebody permanently to be in the band and to write with them for the next projects. So anyway, I knew what the set list was going to be like, and I knew how they sounded on tapes, but I'd never played with them. Well, here we were at the first gig. I'm meeting everybody. I already met Roger, but I'm meeting everybody for the first time. Hey, how you doing? Hey, great, nice to meet you. And we're in this little room at the gig where we've got some equipment set up, and Pacey starts playing a beat, and I kind of play something, jamming along with him, and all of a sudden John plays it exactly back to me. I play something else, he plays it back to me again, but a little bit more added to it, and we kept going like that, and pretty soon we got this great communication going. This jam went on for a really long time. And even Ian Gillan, he wasn't singing over it, but he started playing the conga drums. Everybody was having a good time. Anyway, after about an hour of doing that and then trying some ideas on just trying some ideas together. Everybody was slapping each other on the backs. It was like, you know, just luck or whatever, that we all were communicating so well musically. And suddenly the pressure was off me. Well, no, sorry. The pressure was on me because I was the new guy playing a set I'd never played live before after having just met the guys. But musically, the pressure was off, I thought, because, hey, these guys play great. And Jon can read my mind. Yeah, he can hear everything I'm doing, and he listens to me. And since Jon left and Don's been in the band, he is the same way. He can hear like a jazz player. He can play jazz stuff. He can play any classical piece. And it's eerily similar to the way it was with Jon, with Don Airey. So we've had these two monster keyboard players that are, like I said, in just in the highest category that I could imagine ever playing in any rock setting. So yeah, I was very pleased.
So you actually you stole my thunder here, because that's actually
I know,
one of my questions.
Long answers to short questions. That's me.
So in saying that, you play with, and I'm going to kind of go ahead a little bit in the conversation because you're just talking about the two of them. So what similarities, differences? You play with these two amazing keyboard players, these two legends. What are there any similarities between the two? What are the major differences? Kind of how has your relationship been with both of them, like separately, and how do they compare?
Well, the similarities, both have incredible ears. Don technically has perfect pitch, which means when you hear a single pitch, you can say that's what note that is. And Jon has very good relative pitch. Had relative. To me, Jon is still alive, but that he died of complications from cancer some years ago after he'd retired. But Jon could hear relationships so perfectly well, and that's the way I hear too. Is give me a key, call it whatever you want, but I'm going to relate everything that I hear to that key, unless my brain tells me that there's now a new key center to relate to. That's the way Jon heard things, and that's the way I do. So we totally communicate on that. And then with Don, he can hear everything and assign a note value to it. So there's no guesswork at all. He just has, well, both of them had the ability to hear what you're doing and come up with something great to go along with it. And both are British, and both are funny. Just most musicians, because, well, it's another long interview about why, but most musicians are amateur comedians, in a way. In most bands, you'll find that's how you cope with stuff. Like when the Spinal Tap movie came out, it was like the set on stage isn't working right. There's a disaster that happens, with the thing doesn't come down, or it's the wrong size, or somebody ordered the wrong thing, or the record isn't selling well, or the gigs, some of the gigs got canceled, or they got lost from the dressing room, which is a half a mile away underground to the stage, or the girlfriend, one of the guys is trying to inject her views and help run the band. All this stuff, everybody's laughing, and I'm going, what? That's not funny. I mean, that's the way it really is. And so that we're because of that, when you have a bad gig or there's a problem, or it's, you got 550 miles to drive or whatever, you just joke about stuff. And anyway, these guys were superb at that. In fact, the whole band, it's just the thing with musicians. Once they're comfortable, they just, you can hear the inside jokes in everything, every little comment almost, and sometimes in the lyrics of the songs.
So basically, like, so Rick Wakeman is not the only one, in other words. So everybody, Rick Wakeman's got this like history of being like a true comedian guy, like outside of his musical life. So it sounds like a good majority of you guys are like that.
Yeah. In fact, the last time I saw Jon Lord was with Rick Wakeman. He and Rick were doing a duo thing at the Royal Albert Hall, where we were also playing for a charity thing. Yeah, I love Rick Wakeman, and you know, for a lot of reasons, and being a great writer also. But back to their similarities, and both had incredible technique, but a real command of the Hammond organ. The Hammond organ, you know, there's all these drawbars and two different manuals or keyboards, and you have drawbars for each one, so you could pre-select a sound to use for part of a chicka chicka chicka, and have the upbeats on this keyboard sound different than the downbeats on this, and both are extremely gifted at that. You know, playing the organ and shaping the sounds, and I love that, rather than here's the preset for purple organ, you know. And that's what makes every take different, every show different, and both could improvise at a moment's notice and just play to the delight of a room full of people, or a stadium full of people, you know, just on their own, because you know, that just a lifetime of expressing yourself on a polyphonic instrument gives you a huge command, a lot of things to choose from. So musical giants in that sense, all that. And the ways that they were different, I'd say Don is, well, one of his hobbies is to take off and be like the tourist of the world. Wherever we are, he's off early in the morning. And I don't know how he does it, because he must just go to sleep the instant we get back from the gig. And I'm like, well, if you get home from work at 6 p.m., you don't go to sleep at 6:01 p.m. You go to sleep at like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m.
You have to wind down a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm that guy. So if I get home at 1 a.m., I'm not asleep at 1:01 a.m. like everybody else. So I never see him at breakfast, but Don's up early for breakfast and got his camera around his neck, and he's, you know, in his book about, you know, touring so-and-so wherever we are. And he goes around, photographs. Oh, there's that cathedral. There's that building. This is the site where this happened. And he's amazing that way. And I mean, you talk about a soccer fan, or they would say football. Obviously, football is something you use your hands for, not your feet. But they think football is something you kick. I don't know. They're into soccer everywhere, every other country, and then more than U.S. So they're all really into soccer, but Don is the most intense soccer fan. He even bought his house based on how close it was to being within walking distance of the stadium where his local team played.
I seem
and
to
he's
recall,
the guy. Yeah.
back
What?
in the early 80s, I remember pictures of seeing, when he was in Rainbow, seeing pictures of the rink, because Richie and the band always played soccer too. And I don't know if they were playing the guys in Iron Maiden or something like that, but I remember seeing pictures of Don in like the soccer outfit and the shorts on a ball field somewhere. We're going back a ways, obviously, but
yeah, Richie was into it too. And so they had matches with people as they would tour. So when I see Iron Maiden, we start talking about airplanes. And drummers from Florida, so we talk about Florida and airplanes. Anyway, another, I say Jon was more quiet and to himself, and wasn't so much into the synthesizer as Don is. So Don plays a lot more synthy, sampled stuff, and really got into the mini mode. And I would say Jon was more classically oriented and composing stuff. You know, Jon wrote the concerto for group and orchestra that we toured with several times. I mean, several tours were based around that. And ultimately, that is why he retired. He got offers to do that kind of thing more and be more, you know, more of a complete composer. And he did that very well. And yeah, so Jon was like grand piano, Hammond, and some synth stuff, and you know, really cool clavinet parts and stuff like that. And Don, you know, continues to develop the mini moog as lead instrument also, and never stops, you know, working on sounds and stuff. And in writing, I think Jon was a little bit more. He was thinking more outside the box in terms of ideas. Like the song, Sometimes I Feel Like Screaming, I was playing this harmonic idea just to myself, thinking, oh, that'd be cool, maybe for one of my songs. And Jon heard it with Roger and said, hey, we could do something with that. I said, really? He said, yeah. And so he started playing along with it. And by the end of the song, we recorded a rough version of it that was on the album. And Don and I work together on ideas constantly, but he's really inclined to, you know, immediately have an impression which way the idea should be, as am I. So if these don't align perfectly, it's like, well, of course, you know, we could do it your way, but we could also do it the right way, which is my way, you know, and there's more than one. So sometimes we get into it a little bit about which way it should be, but it's just because we're both enthusiastic and forthcoming with ideas very quickly. And I guess with more than anything, when I compare the two, there's more similarities musically than differences. And the biggest number one thing was that both could play so well, improvise, well, three things: play so well, improvise so well, and have great ears and listen.
Great stories. Great stories. I love hearing this stuff. So did you ever envision, so earlier you talked about like kind of like day one. Did you ever envision that all these years later it'd be 2020 and you guys will be getting ready to release, like, is this the seventh or eighth? Trying to think how many studio albums you've worked on with the band now.
I don't count them.
Yeah, I think it's 8, right? Anyway, so you got Whoosh coming out, which was actually supposed to come out last month, but due to COVID-19 and, you know, whatever kind of holdups you guys have, whether it was manufacturing or whatever, it was pushed back originally to September, but now it's coming in a couple of weeks, actually in about a month. Are you guys excited to finally get this album out? We've had pretty good success with the last two, and I think most people are excited for another release. And you know, you've been talk of the last tour and all that kind of stuff, but you guys are still showing that you're a viable recording band in the studio. So you guys pretty stoked to get this one out there?
Yeah, and well, we got an incredible team now. Bob Ezrin is part of it and has been part of it for the last few albums. So now it's like we, you know, between us all, we're going to come up with something, no matter what. And I'm excited for the music to be released, but it's, you know, naturally it's a drag that there can't be a tour or anything associated with it. And I was always told, oh no, you can't release an album unless you're going to tour. Oh yeah. Well, what are we doing in a few weeks here? Let's see. Yeah, it's with Flying Colors. That was always a big thing. Was the pressure to tour? You know, say, what about this month? Can you do it? Well, I don't know. I'm in Purple, and they might book something, and at the moment, that's the day after I get back from a 6-week tour. You know, I don't want to leave that day to go on another one. So there's always those kind of problems. And the underlying thing was, well, we're not going to release an album unless you do a tour. But here we are. So
You
it
don't
is
have much of a
possible.
choice.
Yeah, exactly. Things are changing. The music business has evolved from, at one point, it was mathematically, theoretically possible to make some income from recording. I mean, on paper, it was. And now it's, you know, it's pretty much just, it's well, not exactly charity, but it's, you know, it's not something you would schedule when you need to pay your bills.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like it was 30, 40 years ago. Absolutely not. But you know, you got to make it work to the best of your abilities, right? Well, we can only hope, and I apologize. My dogs are going ballistic out here, so I've got them behind closed doors. You know, it is my wife's a dog trainer, so she's got her client and the dogs outside, and the other ones, my dogs, are in here looking out the window, going absolutely nuts. So.
Oh yeah, we just coaxed this stray dog that somebody dropped off near our farm, who was hanging out by the street because that's where they dropped him off, and was going to get run over. So we finally made friends with him and brought him into the house, got him cleaned up, and borrowed this machine to check for the chip numbers if it's embedded in him. Nothing. Just so we've got another dog to add to the pack, looking for a home. Beautiful, unbelievably nice dog. But yeah, I know what you
Dogs are the
mean.
best. Dogs are the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 3 of them. We'd have more if we could, but
Yeah, we have 2 and 3 at the moment.
So back to Bob Ezrin. So obviously the formula works, and like you said, he's become kind of like the unofficial member of the band here. So what is it about his production style that works so well with you guys? I mean, I think there were folks who might have been a little skeptical before the Now What album, and then that came out, and it's like, it works. And it works really well. And then Infinite came out, and it's like, okay, this formula is really working dividends. And not that the production on all the previous albums weren't great as well, but there's something about you guys together. And I've heard the new album. In fact, I just heard some of it this morning, and I was like, this, again, it's got a similar feel. It's a formula that's working. So what is it about the partnership with you guys that's really kind of clicking?
Well, I think he's detail-oriented, and he's able to see the big picture, and he doesn't mind being the heavy and you know, stopping arguments by saying, let's just try it this way. Come on. Let's quit arguing about it. This way works. Come on. You've already stated that theme twice. You don't need to do that again. Let's go with the new C section there. And he's never at a loss for words about a section or an opinion. And he's kind of like the Marine drill sergeant. He's very effective, but you know, he's not reading the book of Miss Manners says I should say things this way. You know, he just comes right out with it, and you've got to have enough thick skin to be able to deal with that. You know, there will be harsh criticism of your guitar playing. There definitely will. And it turns out I'm the only guitar player, so there will be harsh. No, I knew him before when we worked on the Kansas album, the last Kansas album, In the Spirit of Things. So I already knew that it would be great to get his input. And, you know, he and I agree about so much. He gets so much out of Ian Gillan. And the only thing I would change about him is bring the guitar up in the mix, except in the solos. They're already loud in the solos, but make it maybe just he concentrates on having me play outside of my comfortable style to fit the song. And, you know, sometimes that works better than others, in my opinion. But it always sort of makes sure that I'm going to get a different approach to a solo. Because, you know, if I play one that says, hey, I think that's pretty good. Morse, you played this. Come on, save it for your solo. Like, come on, let's do this. Give me some melody. Come on. And that's him being tactful. Okay. So I'm exaggerating a little bit for the sake of exaggerating, but he's very consistent about what works for the song with everybody. So on the other hand, he was, I thought, wise and strong enough to say on the beginning of Uncommon Man, I want you guys to just play, listen to each other, and improvise like you did, like I saw you do on stage. And I'm going to press record now. And our whole take was what was on the record for their intro. And that was really cool. You know, just to have the confidence of saying, we need some, you know, some really humanity, some atmospheric stuff that isn't scripted. And I thought that was a really cool thing to do on an album that we're spending a lot of time on each section, you know, working on, to have a section where this is the band breathing naturally. And he likes doing stuff like, you know, if I bring in a rock and roll idea, like the song What the What from the new album, just a fun idea, you know, he gets that. And we even did a re-recording of the first tune that Purple ever recorded. Because I think the idea originally was this was going to be our last album.
And will that be the case?
Well, one thing I forgot to ask when I joined the band is, are you guys human? In other words, are you some alien race that's taken over human form that has a lifespan of 150 to 200 years? I forgot to ask that, but apparently that's what the deal is. So,
well, for most fans, that's okay. You're not disappointed me there.
As long as the music is good quality, I'm in for it. But geez, I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to keep up with these guys. I'm the youngest guy, but the only problem is I'm from the human race, and they're from the Martian race. I don't know what the lifespan is exactly, but apparently we're not there yet.
Not even close, probably, right?
This band, yeah, we never know what's happening because it's not highly scripted. You know, at some point, our agent and manager get together and get real specific about gigs and stuff.
Yeah, it's like out of the blue, you'll hear like Ian will just come out like in an interview saying, "Yeah, I think we're going to do an album." Just
oh yeah, yeah. And they started this whole long goodbye thing. It was like, oh wow, okay, cool. I guess I'm down with that. Quit while you're ahead, go for it. You know, announce the retirement. That's awesome. And then first press conference. Usually, when we go to a new country, there'll be a press conference. You know, a lot of countries, they don't believe that you're actually going to show up because they've had so many no-shows and stuff from other groups or whatever. So sometimes we'll do press conference, and then the guys are saying, well, it's called the Long Goodbye Tour, but that doesn't mean, and I go, what? But I told everybody, what? So yeah, I'm always going, what? Because things are always evolving.
So meanwhile, you're having a conversation with like Neil or Mike from Flying Colors. Like, yeah, it's long, but about a year, I should be pretty free, whatever.
Yeah,
That's not the
yeah,
case, right?
yeah. And so my list of people that hate Steve because he's, can't commit to anything grows and grows.
So back to the new album. So Whoosh. So coming out in a couple weeks. So again, I've only listened to it once. So first impression that I got, a little more riffy of an album from your perspective. I know the first two albums with Ezrin, pretty keyboard heavy, some good solos and cool riffs, but I detect a little more heavier guitar riffs on this album. I don't know if that was done on purpose or just worked out that way. So I want to get your perspective on that. What was some of your favorite songs to work on, but also a little bit too. So you're a guy, you look at your background, you were never known as more of a riff guy, but more of a guy who created a lot of kind of like lead melodies and arrangements and things like that. So how was it coming into a band that were known for a lot of classic riffs when you weren't really that riff guy to kind of try to be that guy when needed? And how did it work out for the new album? And like, what are some of your favorite tracks from the new album?
Well, as far as it being riffy, I think there's a lot of examples of that in the stuff I've written with the band, but it's the easiest way to get consensus among everybody. It's if you start with the riff that everybody likes, well, okay, let's build a song around that. And if you start with a chord progression that is real challenging to get a hold of or to hear ideas over, that's the toughest sell. But we've managed to get both of those in the album in different tunes, and like songs like "Long Way Around" or well, actually, the opposite of a riffy tune was the song with the Bach piece in the middle that Don played, called "Nothing at All," and it's got a real kind of floating melody on the guitar, but it's played up high, and that's the interlude between the verses, so to speak. And in that case, the riff is all a lead line, and then we got just a lot of feel things. So where I wouldn't consider them riffy, but it's a feel kind of like trying to think what, maybe it's sort of like the Detroit Wheels. Don and I love that kind of Little Richard / Mitch Ryder stuff, and so we had a tune like that in there, and a lot of two songs I played on the 6-string bass or the baritone guitar, and the guitar's like 18 feet long. Well, it feels like it. And on one of the tunes, I played the solo on that guitar. Oh, sorry, I did 2 solos on it. And you can't tell that the solo's on a baritone guitar, tuned way down, because I played, with the artificial harmonics where, I pick this note and play it, stop the string 12 frets above and playing like that. And the track is called Man Alive. And Man Alive is a real sort of atmospheric, orchestral sounding piece in spots. And then it gets heavy and has the heavy riff, dum, 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 typical minor pentatonic bass, riffy stuff. But in that tune, the solo just sounds weird because it's a fat sound, but it's the registers up high in the guitar range because I'm playing harmonics. Just very hard to bend strings, but I thought it was worth it for that.
Cool.
And Bob liked it too, because it meant I couldn't play my my typical stuff.
It's like, that's it, Morse. That's what we want to hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything but what you normally do, Morse, is going to be great.
Right, right. And for those of you watching, there are some pretty tremendous Steve Morse guitar solos on this album that are stuff you would expect to hear from Steve. So he does not disappoint there at all, which is very cool. Are there any, if you could pick like what's one classic Purple track that you guys play live that you really dig playing? And what's Steve Morse era Deep Purple track that you really love to play live? And then when you're done telling us that, is there a old Purple song that you've never played live with the band that you would love to one day?
Wow. Okay. Three-part question.
Three-parter.
Okay. First one, the classic one, probably Highway Star or Hard Loving Man, because they're both intense guitar playing, and they have great keyboard section. Like the solo for Highway Star has got that that sequence that keeps on going while we're changing in a typical classical chord sequence, and then it goes back into more rock organ section. I like all the parts, and I love the energy of the tune, and it's just a party playing that. And Hush as well. I love that, and I was the person really pushing to get the band to adopt that tune. And somebody just the other day in an interview was saying, "Can you please play something besides Hush?" Oh no, that's one of my favorites.
It's like, I love it. No.
Yeah. He says, "You always play it for an encore." I said, "That's because it's a party." The whole place. But he one of these guys has seen the band 100 times. Anyway, so that, as far as classic ones, Highway Star is probably the perfect fit. And the new ones, I think Uncommon Man is my favorite because of the improv section, which we now play as, because everybody's heard it the way we improvised it. Now those chords are like part of the intro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird, but at least I can improvise over that. And the riff together, where we're playing fifths and sixths together, is very unusual, but it's almost become one of the signature unique things about Purple, this version of Purple, that Don and I love to do. He gets a big brass fanfare sound, and it doubles really well with the guitar. And let me see if I can grab a guitar.
I was hoping you would, Steve. There we go.
Well, I'm not plugged in, but you can hear the notes.
Sure.
Anyway. It's a it just with a heavy, Ian and Roger just boom, 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 boom. So I love that because nobody else really, and that's not a thing, It's just, if you go down the list of cliches, it's like, well, that one's not in there. So I love it. I mean, I can play cliche stuff and enjoy it very much, but I like doing stuff that is not in the book.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen you guys with you in the band many, many times. And that is a nice song to have in the set list. It really is. And I think it goes over really well now.
Yeah, it has to do with those 20 euro notes that I put under the seats. Said, "You can keep this if you applaud for Uncommon Man when we play it." Very expensive campaign, but I think people just like energy. Good energy with with some degree of uniqueness, I think is the best. And again, why Highway Star stands out so much.
Yeah.
Now, three-part question. What was the third part again?
An old Deep Purple cut that the band doesn't play live.
Oh yeah, we don't
that
do.
you would
Okay.
like, yeah, that you would like to do.
Well, actually, when I first joined, we did "Child in Time." But that would have been one of them, and that was just really hard on Ian's voice. But I always like the song "Bad Attitude" just for the feel. You know, it kind of that reminded me of that Who song, "Can't Explain." And not that was a poppy sort of tune, and "Bad Attitude" is a different thing. But it's a cool syncopation of the rhythm part with, you know, nothing too heavy. But I also, I think, I wish we did. Well, we used to do this, but "Hard Loving Man" with, and that's just that insistent. Steve Walsh from Kansas used to say it's like that galloping beat.
Absolutely.
It's hard not to like that energy.
Yeah. I think part of me always would have liked to hear you, and I know Ian wouldn't go for it, but to hear all of a sudden the band break into like Burn or Stormbringer or something like that from the Mark III era, even though that's, you know, not fair to Ian, obviously, but I always wanted to hear you do some of that stuff. And I know you did instrumental bits here and there, right? On some
Yeah,
live.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and that's, in fact, Ian Pace and I did play this early in the year at a rock and roll fantasy camp, as we were being exposed to COVID-19, but didn't know it because it was not an official thing. It was just a virus. And when we did the NAMM show and stuff, everybody got sick that worked at the NAMM show. It's just something that happened. We call it NAMthrax. NAMM, for anybody listening, stands for National Association of Music Merchants, so NAMM. And a NAMM show is a trade show that lots of musicians go to because sometimes they're used as demonstration, you know, musical demonstrators, and, you know, playing the products, you know, to you know, highlight their endorsement or to bring people into the booth or whatever. And you know, I was enjoying NAMM and playing with Paul Gilbert at the Ernie Bowl booth and shaking hands, taking pictures with people for months. Then Ian and I did that rock and roll fantasy camp right before then. But anyway, we played Burn. That was that was one of the songs that people had requested.
So, you
And
know,
it's a good guitar solo.
Oh yeah, it's a great guitar solo in that. So you've done a fantastic job today of kind of segueing into my next questions all the time. So that's great. So you mentioned NAMM, and I actually wanted to kind of talk a little bit about gear because we have a lot of, you know, guitar players who watch this channel, and they're going to want to, you know, hear you talk about, you know, gear and all that kind of stuff. So this is also another kind of two-part question. I'll get to the NAMM thing in a minute because I was watching a video this morning of you and John Petrucci from Dream Theater. Doing a little interview at NAMM a couple years ago, whatever. And I was like, kind of like really touched by the camaraderie that you guys have. So I guess the first part of my question is, you know, all these years in the business, you've obviously met a lot of cool players and musicians, recorded with them, hung out with them, jammed with them. You mentioned Paul Gilbert before, and I saw those videos too from NAMM, spectacular stuff. So who are some of the other musicians that you have come across in all your years in the industry who are really special to you, whether you're close friends with them or whether, you know, just you recorded some great stuff together, but who you can call a real good friend and you love playing with them purely on a musical, you know, perspective and as well as, you know, from a human perspective as well.
Well, you just named two of them. I think playing in the G3 tour gave me great exposure. And I already knew Eric Johnson because we had toured together in the past and with the Dregs. And he's definitely one of them. And but getting the more that I played with Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, the more I saw of their depth as players, you know, just endless. And I still, you know, we communicate a lot with a group of guitarists on a thread, and so we're very close. And I think it's amazing. And same way, part of the thread that is Ron Thal, who has the weird nickname of Bumblefoot, because he doesn't bumble anything. He's just incredible, just outside of the box thinker, creative, incredible player. And all the guys from the thread, Doug Rappaport from, you know, we toured with Edgar Winter, and he plays with Edgar and just tears it up. Jeff Watson from Night Ranger, he and I got to be friends when I was in Kansas, and we did a whole tour together. Love him, and his incredible ability to play anything. And Joe Hoekstra, who actually replaced Jeff in Night Ranger, turns out to be this incredibly heavy, intense player that can do anything. And boy, and when we played with Pablo Cruz, actually with Kansas, we did a tour around the world as part of the USO, Department of Defense thing, you know, where we stay in the infirmaries on the aircraft carriers that they're out at sea, and get helicoptered from one ship to another. Dave Jenkins, the guitar player, singer from Pablo Cruz, I became friends with him too, and he's just amazing singer, songwriter, plays super tasty stuff. I'm just going down my list of friends that I think are amazing. Jay Graydon, who I guess is best known for his solo on Peg from Steely Dan, but produced and wrote lots of hits. And one of the most technically savvy guys I know. I'm friends with him and love the way he plays. And his friend, Tom Hemby, it's just a Nashville absolute massacre musician, just incredible player. And but when it comes to, you know, having the power and just the technique and just the sheer presence with the guitar, I think John Petrucci really kills it. And oh yeah, and I've also did some gigs with Yngwie Malmsteen. Same thing, just can't be stopped. Just amazing style that he has.
Who's the guy, like past or present, I guess guitar player, who you are like absolutely floored by, who you're like, that guy has everything? Is there like one guy who like stands head and shoulders above the rest, do you think?
Well,
other than Steve Morse, of course.
Well, when I was in school, it was Pat Metheny, and still is, you know. But I just, you know, he does a different kind of music, travels in different music circles, more of a jazz. But he and I would even sit down and play together, and it was wonderful, just like playing with Don Airey or Jon Lord. And John McLaughlin and Al Di Meola and Paco de Lucia, that tour, I was just the biggest Mahavishnu fan. And John McLaughlin was, you know, one of the very most influential players. And I got to know him and just constantly impressed by him, constantly. He's, you know, obviously a big part of my influence and a big hero.
Yeah, well, I think anybody who listens to the Dixie Dregs obviously has to know that that band was a huge influence on you guys.
Yeah, and that's from seeing him play. play that live too. And, you know, ending up having Jerry in the band, you know, playing the violin, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that had to have been a big kick for you.
And Jerry is like Bob Ezrin. He's heard enough guitar in his lifetime. But he plays really well, you know, with he gets incredible. He can get feedback on the violin somehow. Just the way he bows it. He can change the bow, turning it sideways and slowing it down to where you can get a whistling feedback just on command.
So you mentioned the Dregs, and it was going to be my last question, but I still got a little bit more for you if you got the time. So, you know, with Deep Purple now possibly winding down a little bit, possibly, we don't really know for sure yet. What's kind of like, is there a future for the Dixie Dregs, for the Steve Morse Band? You know, obviously you do the Flying Colors thing when you can. So is there anything that the fans can look forward to, you know, maybe 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, or less from the Dregs? So have you thought of resurfacing with those guys again, or, you know, the Steve Morse Band? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we did a 4-year reunion of the Dregs with Steve Davidowski, who is the only living keyboardist that we recorded with. T. Levis died and Mark Parrish died. So it would have to be with him. But if we did it after the Purple tour, he would be 79 years old or 80. So I don't know. We got it, but there's a lot of question marks on that. And plus, you know, personally, I've got my own challenges to deal with, you know, in terms of keeping the chops up. So, you know, I'm always trying these different miracle medical cures and stuff. Next stop.
How is the wrist doing?
It's well, I'm playing right now I'm practicing every day with this kind of motion where I'm picking from the elbow and not moving my wrist at all. And that's the best way to keep playing for right now. But when I get to a gig and every, you know, execution counts, that's when I'm more likely to go back to this rotating in 2 axes that wore my wrist out. That, you know, it's bone on bone. Like when I just twist something or apply pressure with, like, using a tool or something, you can feel and hear the bones clicking past each other, and it's very painful. So in the adrenaline of the moment on the gigs, you don't feel it, but you have to practice it every day. I have to practice it every day. So that's becoming a factor. I'm going to go get some embryo stem cells injected and all this stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, I picture, you know, the music of the Dregs and the Steve Morse Band very demanding, right? Very challenging, and it's a little bit different than Deep Purple music. So yeah, with the wrist issues, that could be a problem, right?
Yeah, but yeah, creative people can come up with creative ways around things.
That's right.
And that's what I do. You know, people call me the MacGyver on tour, you know, as far as fixing the bus or the truck or whatever, do what you have to do at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm always trying to MacGyver things, and technically I'm doing that all the time, daily, trying to figure out how do I do this?
Yeah, how to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. How to make it work.
Yep.
But the bottom line is when you're there with an instrument and you have a way to connect without effort to the instruments, you can make your voice and your vision heard. So that's still happening. As long as that's happening, I'm still in there. But the instant that I feel bad about it, the fact that people paid money to sit in those seats, I'm going to be booking a ticket home. Because I don't want to be that guy. Like, we paid for this? But, I am more of a quit while you're ahead guy.
Well, so, hopefully not anytime soon, Steve.
Yeah.
So in closing.
Yeah, but anybody in their past their middle 60s has got to think about life in this way,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear you. So let's kind of finish this off with a little gear talk. So what is Steve Morse playing on these days? What types you got any new guitars you've been playing, new effects, amps, anything like that you've been kind of using of late that you'd like to kind of throw out there?
Well, this is going to be a boring section because it's my old number one.
The old standby.
The 4 pickups, 3 switches.
I guess you can't mess with success, right, Steve? What works, works.
Yeah, but it's being comfortable with it. It plays great, and it gives me like when we do a Flying Colors gig, this is all I bring. And Tommy, my tech, he brings his guitar, which is a Y2D. It's the one that which is the best Y2D, which was a prototype. That I got used to. So we have 1 4 pickup and 1 3 pickup guitar when we do Flying Colors. And the 3 pickup guitar only gets played if I break a string on this, which I very rarely do. So I play the whole night with this because if I need a Strat sound, I can select it. If I need a combination of humbucking the Strat, I can select it. And of course, if I need a singing heavy fat solo sound for a melody, I got it there. And for chords and power chords, I got a nice rock sound. But the Y2D is a little bit fatter of a rock sound, so I use that more in Deep Purple. No, nothing's really changed there. That's just my Music Man guitars, and still using my Angle amp, and it's a Steve Morse model or something that's got some designation. And you don't see them too much because they're expensive. They're from Germany, so they're imported. But they're awesome amps, and they're working on a smaller version, a much smaller version of that, with smaller form factor, less weight, and with the sounds as much as possible the same. But I'm not sure if we're going to have different power tubes in order to get that small size. But as a touring musician, or previously known as touring musician, you can't take a super heavy amp on an airplane flight without getting into this punitive area. Like up to 50 pounds, it's whatever, it's $50 or $70 for an overseas flight. Then at 51 pounds, it's like $280 for, what? So to have an amp in a case and be underweight, I need a smaller version of it. So hopefully Engel will furnish me that before the tour. And I'm sure COVID has done great for every business that trying to make things and sell them. Unless you sell mass and are in the service industry, you're out of luck. It's been a horrible time. All the things that I interact with are being financially devastating. So gear-wise, I still have the Keeley compressor, the TC Polytune pedal, and for delays, I use the TC Flashback with my tone print, my meaning Steve Morse tone print, which is available online for free. If you buy one, you just flash that into the pedal and you'll get the best delay sound with some modulation and some warmth to it. And that's what I use for short and long delay. And set those to 100% wet, which the TC pedals are great because you can select them for true bypass if you need them inline. I don't use them inline. And you can also set them for dry kill, which means when you set the effect 100 all the way up, and instead of 50-50, 50, half dry and half wet, you can make it all wet. That's the way I set them, so that they're fed off the preamp of the dry amp. So the dry amp goes to the delays. The delays are fully on, no dry signal coming out. And then 2 Ernie Ball volume pedals after that. Then those are summed together to go to the second amp, the wet amp. And that way, when I want delay, I press down on the pedal and get as much as I need, but it comes from a separate source, so there's no intermodulation distortion. Very important. And it doesn't change the sound of the dry at all. It just simply adds a delay to it. So that's the setup I've been using since 1970. When I had it was an Echoplex, but the Echoplex was so hissy that I couldn't use it in line, I thought, because I didn't want to hear that hiss. So I put it through a second amp, fed by the first amp. It was an Ampeg V4 back then, but it had a preamp out. And turned down the treble of the second amp, and used a Showbud volume pedal from my steel guitar. Before I knew the guys from Ernie Ball, and what a good pedal they had there. So that was the reason I started with all that. And it turns out when we play clubs and you add, you press on that pedal and the delay would add to the sound and just make it sound huge. That became my thing.
Very cool. It's nice to hear the kind of ins and outs of the equipment and kind of when. It's great that you've been using like basically the same stuff for so many years. But again, if it works, why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
I remember, when Pat Metheny was selling a piece of equipment, a Lexicon delay, or maybe it was an Eventide or something delay. And I said, what's wrong with it? He said, no, it works. I just don't like it. I said, well, how are you hooking it up? And he was having it in line. I said, let me show you this. And I showed him the way that I had, the delay only coming through a separate amp. And pretty soon he was doing this thing on stage where he had, several different delays with different timings coming through different amps, and then had his dry or just reverb only sound. And so he had this, the live, totally discrete delay from the dry sound thing happening too. And I think he decided to keep the delay after he heard it that way. But of course, Pat takes things to another level. And when he did that thing with tuning the 12 strings in different tunings for San Lorenzo, that was just incredible.
Yeah, well, he's a true innovator.
Pat's a genius. Yeah, he is. He really is.
Yeah. I will say kind of in closing, Pat is one of the artists that I listened to quite a bit during this whole COVID period because, sometimes with everything that's going on, you need something that's calming, something that's, I don't know, just kind of gives you that kind of warm and fuzzy. And Pat Metheny has been kind of like the soundtrack to this whole, however many months we've been doing this now. And, gotta love him for it. His music is just so soothing and so, and all his albums are very different, right? There's a lot of variety in there, and then his guitar playing, the songwriting, all the wonderful musicians, Lyle Mays, and so on and so forth. So it's very cool you're into him as well. So
yeah.
Well, Steve, I'd like to thank you immensely for joining us here today to talk a little bit about the past, the present, and the future. And you have one quick thing to say to everybody who's waiting for this new Deep Purple album and what they can expect.
Well, the album is fun, and I think it shows the sort of the wisdom of the years, but a band having fun playing rock and roll too. So.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So Whoosh coming out August 7th via, what's the label? Is that still Ear, which is this particular one?
Edel Ear. Edel, gotcha. Both. Edel is the German one, and Ear is a subsidiary, I think.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's coming out in a couple weeks. So everybody be on the lookout for it. Thanks again to Steve Morse. Hopefully, when COVID dies down a little bit, we can get to see Deep Purple on stage yet again. All right, because that's always
We're
something to look
booked.
for.
We
Hopefully, yeah. Well, that's a good thing.
2021
Right?
is booked.
Good. Well, that's good. Hopefully, we can make it happen. Last time I saw you guys, you were playing with Judas Priest, and that was, I never thought I'd see that, and that was really, really cool.
They did a great job too.
Yeah, it was just such a great tour because I love both bands so much, and it was just great seeing you guys together. It's like so good. So everybody, make sure you check out the new Deep Purple album, Whoosh, when it comes out in a couple of weeks. Also visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Thanks again to Steve Morse from Deep Purple. We greatly appreciate it. So I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.